What is your name, what are your pronouns, and what are you going to talk about today?
So my name is Zedaph. My pronouns are Z, they, he, and I want to talk about DID systems.
Could you give us a DID 101?
DID stems from repeated childhood trauma, which produces different identities because you've not formed your own identity at that age. A system is to help the main fronter, known as the host, to function properly on day-to-day life. That's how DID works. It's to help function when trauma impedes on your identity.
Could you please give us a brief description of what having DID has meant for you personally?
Rome's always had sort of the memory gaps, and people around us will notice that sometimes our opinions and our behaviour would sort of shift, and because we're autistic, sometimes it was just, we thought maybe it was to fit in. But once we discovered that there was a full-blown system going on, it was hard to adjust to begin with. Even with me being an alter in the system as well, I found it hard because there's so many different roles to fill, and there's a lot of pressure on you to fulfill that role. And it doesn't help that DID is stigmatized a lot. It can be really hard to live with in a public sense. Sometimes you can't be who you are because you're scared of being fake claimed or abused, or people will just think that you're crazy or some kind of danger just because of how a lot of us are portrayed. I've found it particularly very hard to live with and just be myself.
How did having DID affect you growing up?
Growing up was quite hard. There were times where the main host was actually completely gone and we had to actually function as a system. A particular alter who had to do this was named Lil. Lil spent quite a bit of time during childhood fronting, but pretending to be the main host. I believe it was really hard for her again because she had to put up with, first of all the things that Rome was going through, but also because we just can't be ourselves. It really takes a toll on both how the host sees themselves and also on how we saw ourselves growing up. We just wanted to be like everyone else. And it was hard that our brain thought the only way to cope with that was to create new identities to hope that we would fit in. It's always been a need to fit in. And when you're the slightest bit different, it's difficult to be yourself and actually fit in and actually be accepted. So growing up was very hard with DID.
Have you felt you've been marginalised or stereotyped due to having DID?
Yes, I have a huge problem with how the media represents DID and other dissociative disorders. Two particularly. I don't like the movie Split and I don't like Moon Knight. Whenever you say that you have DID to someone, people go, oh, is it like Split? Is there an evil alter? And it demonizes our existence and makes us feel like we're unstable and we can't properly fit into society. It makes people look at us and think that we're a danger to them, they can't trust us anymore, even though it's the same person that they've grown up with, just because we say that we have DID. It produces so many stereotypes about systems, and it's really honestly not fair. The other one that I have a huge issue with is Moon Knight, and although the team said that they dramatized it to make it into a superhero movie, I accept that, but there's still very inappropriate assumptions that a lot of people take as fact, and they use that to discriminate against people. It's particularly systems. We've experienced it quite a bit with certain alters because a load of stereotypes have been formed from people who don't understand what a system is, but yet they are accepted as fact because of movies like this. Another big thing is social media. A lot of systems go on social media to support each other. They find other systems, they can mutual with them, they can talk, they can chat, they can message and feel like there's someone else who's going through what you're going through, someone else who can relate to everything that's going on. Yet these stereotypes from these film series and movies, people use that to fake claim and discourage and be completely rude to systems, which can really highly affect system states. So yes, I do feel that in modern age, even though there's more information than there was, there is still a lot more stigma that overpowers that, which is very disappointing for me.
Has anything like this happened at the university?
No, nothing has happened at the university. To be honest, I think the university is a very supportive place. We've had switches in actual lectures. We've talked to the lecturers and They're extremely helpful. They always ask who's fronting. They ask what they can do to make us feel comfortable. And obviously, there can be quite massive behavioural differences. We have alters that have accents. I myself have a much deeper voice than Rome. And when we ask a question, none of the students turn around and look at us. No one takes any notice. And it's nice to feel accepted and safe. So I believe that university is a safe place for systems, which I'm very proud to say.
Could you please do some myth busting about stereotypes surrounding DID?
First of all, the main myth that I think people use to fake claim people is that DID is too rare for everybody to have. There can't be two people in the same space that have DID. And that's not true. Yes, DID is rare. It affects 2% of the population. There's 2% of the population are redheads. How many redheads have you met in your life? 2% is little, but compared to the population, that's thousands, if not millions of people. It is rare, but how many people do you meet on a day-to-day basis? There's going to be people with DID. You cannot use that to fake claim. My second one, I've experienced personally with ex-friends and things like that, is that they would have known if we were a system. We have to be fake because they would have recognised it and they would have known. The whole point of alter states is to function covertly. As a child, you experienced the struggle, and because you hadn't worked out your own identity, different alter states split, and that's what you do. You function to keep the main host alive, well, and functioning. Rome, who's our main fronter, did not realize that they were a DID system for 12 years. If you can't work out yourself that you were a system, how is a stranger or someone else supposed to be able to recognize that you're a system? I think now are probably the two I want to explain the most and I want to present the most. A diagnosis is the only way you can be a valid system. We are not officially a diagnosed system, and that is by choice. Diagnosis, yes, it gives validation to symptoms, but they don't magically go away. They're always going to be there, whether you have a piece of paper that says you do or not. And it can dramatically limit other areas of your life and make things a lot worse. So a lot of systems actually choose to be self-diagnosed and not seek a diagnosis because it could be expensive, it could be inaccessible. It could mean that you can't have treatment for other things. You may not be allowed to drive or have surgery. No matter how much that you need it, they can deny it because that you say that you have this. And it's not fair. That's why a lot of people are self-diagnosed and they choose not to seek a diagnosis. And there's a huge stigma that means that they're faking, and a therapist will expose them as being fake. And I think people really need to understand that having a diagnosis does not change who we are. It does not change the fact that we are a system. The final one, which has specifically hit our system pretty hard, and I think a lot of other ones, is rare to have a system full of fictives. Now, this leads on to system terminology. A fictive is an alter who is based off a non-real life person. So, for example, we have alters that are based off our friends, our family. Those would be called factives, which is someone based off real life. A fictive could be a character from a book. It could be someone from your favorite TV show. It could be a YouTuber. And people believe that is a sign of faking. But fictives are more common than you think. We're a very fictive heavy system and we cannot control the alters that we split. So I think people need to really listen about terminology and actually listen to systems when they explain system structure and things like that.
How could the people around you and the university do better?
I'm really amazed at how accepting the lecturers and other people have been with systems, but sometimes I believe that systems are scared to show themselves in case their behavior changes. I think a good thing to do would be to spread more awareness about different systems, maybe from other systems who feel comfortable. If certain systems want to be acknowledged and feel uncomfortable being named, the person who enrolled to university, Maybe they can wear badges with their pronouns on and things like that, but only if comfortable. There could be a way of setting up a different mental health support service for people with dissociative disorders. The university is amazing for well-known disorders such as anxiety, depression, bipolar even. But I don't feel that anywhere there's enough information and support on dissociative disorders in general. DID, PDID, OSDD, they need more information so systems don't feel like outsiders in the world. So this stigma doesn't define us, so we don't let that stigma win. So people can understand that we are functioning people. We're just built a little different.
Is there anything else that you would like to say, or anything you'd like anyone to know about DID?
If someone tells you that they have DID, do not be scared of them or do not view them differently. They're the same person collectively that you've grown up with. They're just split into different parts. All those parts are what made you feel comfortable and happy and related to that person. Just because they're built a little differently doesn't mean you throw all of that history out the window. It needs to be accepted with a welcome heart. It's still the person that you either grew up with, you raised, you've been friends with, you've dated even. And that's really important.